You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering Finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seat belts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
All right, guys. Part 2 of 2 on the eBay acquisition of TCG Player. So obviously, part 1, Reptar paralleled the exact situation happening with his employer, what that meant for the people in the organization, what went into it from the industry side, etc. Mm-hmm. This time it's basically, okay, now that we see how the internal workings are from an anecdotal perspective, what do we think this merger means for the TCG industry?
Yep.
We've got 5 big bullet points. We'll go through them. Let's get started.
Yep. So under the covers, this is something you pointed out because I honestly forgot. CGC, the grading company that Channel Fireball partnered with for their marketplace, is partnered with TCG Player by the transitive property and now gets swept up into eBay. So that adds a second grading house to eBay.
Well, CGC was who they worked with before for the authentication at eBay as well. So 2 of the 3 organizations worked with CGC already.
Yep.
Now TCG Player has a CGC partnership.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
go ahead. Sorry.
So with TCG's warehouse and their push a while ago, I forgot how long it was when they first started, when they did like the Steve Aoki stuff and they snuck Dan Bach by us to try and bring high-end back to TCG Player. This is another avenue for that. Now that TCG Player gets connected to a grading house, they get to bring back that mantra of like, you can trust us. We got photos. We got people that know what they're doing, right?
And I think this is really important because it's kind of, the thing that eBay's had for the last couple of months up on TCG Player is a little bit of seller protection by having this authentication system. Mm-hmm. Because if you've sold on TCG Player at any great volume, you have undoubtedly had something returned to you that here is a fake, which is clearly not the card you sent to them.
Yes, yeah.
But now it's coming back to you, and of course, you're shit out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to do it. And that's something that I think is really good because that provides them a way to alleviate that for the seller. So all of a sudden, people who had migrated over to eBay because eBay had this authenticity guarantee can come back to TCG Player. The other thing, and this is much more speculative. So there's this constant, like, in the sports card world, this back and forth of, like, who's the best grader, what's the best platform to buy, sell, and trade, slabs on, etc. This may mean that TCG just becomes a CGC website. Like, hey, you want a CGC slab? Guess where you can buy it?
Yep.
TCG.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. Slabs, and we talked a number of times about how different slabs carry different premiums based on the company or the content of whatever's inside the slab.
Yeah.
And CGC has kind of been proving their worth, and especially having partnered, you said, like, already with eBay. The eBay, what is it called? I keep forgetting their security service now, where it's like you order something high-end off eBay and it comes in their own little cardboard tomb, verified, authentic. So you get that same kind of, white glove treatment now. Or you could with TCG Player, and I think that's really nice, because as we talked about back then, too, like, I still do my high-end shopping through humans.
Yep.
And that is how the card is handed from human to human to human. It never goes into a bin at TCG Player that I go, yep, give me that dual end.
Yeah.
Because I want the authentication, throughout the process.
I trust myself to do it,
Yeah. And I want to make sure that I'm going to get exactly what I'm supposed to get. Not to say that TCG Player is untrustworthy. That was never really the case, but for something like these large purchases, it just eases the burden on me. I've had to go through TCG Player support to get refunds for cards that were misgraded or what have you, and I'm sure everybody else has had to do the same.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not difficult, but it's just good. It's just nice to know that what TCG Player lists as a condition for a card or a card in general is going to show up as advertised. You got that on eBay, but you didn't always get that on TCG Player. That was a rep. That Troll and Toad guide and the idea of like TCG Player near mint when it comes to Pokemon cards is definitely a thing.
God.
Yeah, Pokemon cards are terrible. I don't understand.
Pokemon collectors and investors are terrible.
I mean, it's not like Yu-Gi-Oh from like the beginning, like the Dark Ages looks that good. Like most of those cards look like people chewed on them in their spare time, but for whatever reason, the memes around Yu-Gi-Oh aren't as rife as they are with Pokemon.
Yeah.
Now, overall, when we look at this merger, this is not quite a zero-sum game, you know, and it's not just that it's going to be bad for TCG Player or good for eBay, but immediately on the surface, that's kind of where we are, especially if you had the opportunity to go and listen to me just deliver 25 minutes of, like, hot business summary
Everyone
to your face.
Suffered.
Yeah. It was bad. That episode was bad for everyone. But I walked through the process of that merger, and at the end of the day, everything ended up being good for both organizations, but it was bad for a while for all the companies being merged into the largest one. Everything was great, and then came the reduction in redundancies.
Yeah.
And so bad or good is kind of, in this instance, narrow scope.
Yeah.
Like we're just going to talk about the upfront. You know, did eBay buy this entity, TCG Player Channel Fireball, for the tech stack and the customers that came with it? Or was this about TCG Player going upstream to a bigger platform to move to eBay? And at the end of the day, I think this is bad for TCG Player and good for eBay, because eBay is known for their platform. They are known to serve a great product. It is trustworthy, it is secure, and it is going to create a better customer experience for the end user. And it's bad for TCG Player because of, as I mentioned, those reductions in redundancy will come. All the people that you knew, all the figureheads at TCG Player, will eventually leave. There will be no reason for eBay to keep them on, because I believe eBay's buying this for the tech stack. They're buying it for BinderPoS, which has all the LGSs, and they're buying it for the TCG Player name, which has all the individual buyers and sellers. And that's it. If eBay could just literally pipe all of those people onto their platform, they would.
Absolutely. And I think I'm very much in line with that. I think this was about eBay acquiring the tech. And if I had to guess, what you'll probably see is the redundancies that are going to be pruned are going to be from eBay staff. Again, if I had to guess, just because you're bringing in people from Channel, BinderPoS, whatever, that are intimately familiar with this software and know how it runs. And I think, what this kind of also does is it really sets eBay up in a very unique space, because they're basically already everything Troll wanted to be with their software,
Ecosystem.
Right? Where you sell it on our platform. We're Troll and Toad. Yep. eBay already does that, and now they're getting an integration that allows people to make websites for themselves that also link up to eBay, which is just huge to me as far as I'm concerned. That is an incredible option for them.
Yeah. The two standout things here that I do want to mention is, and I mentioned the first one in the previous episode, was I hope this is going to be good for the warehouse employees. I believe part of this is also eBay's interested in that fulfillment by Amazon model that TCG Player has, which means all you need is the software and the people. And the people are those people in the warehouse. And I hope that they get to continue their push for unionization. I hope they see better working conditions. I hope they see higher rates of onboarding to help alleviate the same issues that Amazon sees in their warehouse. And at the end of the day, I hope this is good for them, more so than it is some of the other people that decided to deliver a ton of platitudes about this from TCG Player. Also, I think this might sink Crystal Commerce, something I mentioned in the other episode. Crystal Commerce used to pride themselves on the fact that they had API hook-ins to TCG Player, to eBay, to Amazon, and I think that might have been it.
Yeah,
I think that
Amazon, eBay, your own POS.
Yeah.
They have recently
your own
added
POS.
Walmart integration as well.
Yeah. So now with the merger of Channel Fireball into TCG Player, before Crystal could really get their hooks into BinderPOS, and then that rolling into eBay, that leaves Crystal Commerce with hooks into Amazon and Walmart, as well as their own upfront website. Now, Crystal Commerce has been known to be pretty shit, and I think
really?
Yeah, right. Why did a third of the stock of cards on TCG Player disappear for these standard rares? Crystal Commerce went down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, or just double listing cards because, you own twice what you said, obviously. Perfect. Yeah. Flawless. I think this just kind of boots Crystal Commerce out the door. And now, as an LGS, you can roll into whatever integration eBay is going to utilize. Those that were on Channel Fireball Marketplace have already been receiving emails. I think we've seen a couple of them float by on Twitter that I've tried to make sure, we like and bubble up so people see what's going on. And it's a mail from TCG Player. Hey, shit's going sideways. You got to come over here now.
Yeah.
So that pushes the LGS onto the TCG Marketplace. And now at that point, you're fully integrated. So I think that, again, hopefully great for the LGS and poopy for Crystal Commerce, because that company should have fallen off the face of the earth a while ago. Now, we're good. Tracking. This is something that you pointed out. My dealings on TCG Player have been all over the place financially as a seller, so I followed their guidelines, which was anything $20 or more has to be tracked, and that was super easy. I just typed in my little numbers. On eBay, similarly, I can't remember how that worked when I was sending out track packages, but nevertheless, it didn't seem that difficult. So you ask, will TCG be able to track, quote-unquote, envelopes the way eBay does?
And that's what I'm hoping, because during the pandemic, eBay came out with their service that was basically, hey, we will track envelopes. It's like a 70-cent stamp or something like that, that you send a PWE, and it has a tracking number that tracks its delivery. Because one of the biggest problems, of course, is you follow TCG Player guidelines. Sure, but if you send an $8 card and the guy says, hey, sorry, I didn't get it, you're out $8 plus fees anyways, because you already got screwed out of those.
Yep.
So this is just a seemingly minor added benefit that I think can pay huge dividends, just because it allows you to, okay, I have a little bit more protection now as a seller. I am okay, because I'm going to send this $5 card, and I'm not going to get a message in a couple weeks. It's like, hey, idiot, my card never showed up. I need a refund. Great. Love it. Please do more of that.
Okay.
I think that's been one of the biggest, sticking points for a lot of sellers, is they feel like, even though technically as a seller, you're the one that's paying TCG Player because you pay the fees, they cater more to the customers on the end user side, because they understand if people buy cards and have to just eat it when the Postal Service loses it, they're not going to buy cards anymore.
Got it.
So hopefully that stops and makes it easier for sellers.
Okay, so this is just one bullet point under the umbrella of security and policies, basically.
Yes.
And hoping that we get the best from both, from TCG Player and eBay. Okay. Because I know people have been talking about fee structures and you can expect to eat it now, because whoever's fee structure is worse for the seller is the one they're going to use, etc. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But at the same time, you're getting that eBay juice. And I can guarantee you there are more people that visit eBay.com on a given day than people visit TCG Player.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So, you get what you pay for, quite literally, in that one. And then questions about the negotiation process. You ask, or theorize rather, that negotiations had to be ongoing during the CFB acquisition. How big a role did CFB play in this? And the math on it is my guesstimation is 42 days, because the initial merger of CFB and Channel Fireball was on July 11th, 2022. That's when it was announced. And the announcement of the TCG Player acquisition by eBay was announced on August 22nd, 2022, which is, like I said, about 42 days, I believe. So, business does move fast, but these kind of mergers,
don't move that fast.
Yeah.
And this is, you don't have an equity firm come in, evaluate your company, and, oh, well, they say it's worth this much, and you just shoot a number. That's not how it works. There's a negotiation process to it. So I find it very difficult to believe that eBay saw TCG Player buy channel, and they're like, oh, we want to get in on that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get everything done in 42 days, finalized, signed, I's dotted, T's crossed, batch agreed to, number, everything, sales done. We've got all in one.
That's less time than it takes some people to move from house to house.
Yeah, our house was 40 days to close on. Okay, that's a house.
Yeah.
That's a fraction of the cost that we're looking at here. And I understand money greases palms, whatever. I think that one of the important things about this acquisition for eBay was if they started kicking the tires on TCG Player, TCG, in the interest of transparency, because obviously they have to, hey, we're also acquiring this entity.
Yeah.
You will be purchasing this as well.
Yeah.
So my guess is, obviously the eBay acquiring TCG Player was, ongoing prior to the finalization of the CFB. I don't think it necessarily sealed the deal, but it certainly made it a whole lot more appealing that all of a sudden you have this significant upgrade to your web structure, to your inventory structure. And I think one of the important things here that people might be forgetting is that TCG Player and CFB have SKUs. eBay's just a free-form list.
Mm-hmm.
Now eBay inherits these SKUs that they can now upload to their service.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit more codified across the board. So to me, I definitely think the CFB acquisition helped eBay want to acquire TCG, but I don't think it was the driving force behind it.
No, absolutely. I feel like that had been done and essentially the ink dry, then the announcement made, and then proceedings for the next layer of merger. As we discussed in the previous episode, the conglomerate that eventually purchased my company came around once before, and we told them to jog off. Then we purposefully merged with another org, and years later, 2 years later, after we brought our tech stacks together and did all the redundancy reduction, did that other org come back around? Years, not months.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any way that eBay didn't know that something might have been going on at all.
Absolutely not.
And the one thing I couldn't find when I was doing this was, what was the number for the first acquisition?
I didn't find it. I could not find it anywhere.
Yeah. So one of the big question marks is, well, if this entire entity was valued at $295, what was CFB worth in that valuation?
Yeah.
If you're looking at this from a growth perspective or from just something basic that's just like revenue versus debts, what does CFB hold in this instance? Or if you're looking at it from a different avenue, you come at it from EBITDA, which we talked about in the previous episode, where does CFB sit? Are they the amortized debt that is being paid down? Is CFB just a black hole? Are they a net negative? What exactly was that worth? And I think if we knew that, then it clears up a lot of the picture of around why only $295 million, and then you can decide, oh, that might have been too much or that might have been too little. For me, as we discussed at the previous episode, I think
seems like not a lot.
Yeah, I think that's too little for the services provided by both those organizations, especially when you bring all of that in-house and what your expected growth can be, growth in the industry based on that, where they see this heading. And it just does not feel like 4 months to get all this done was enough time. It feels like this had to be just ongoing. I mean, hell, it could have even been conversations floated at Gammas for all we know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
because
who knows?
People from other industries do show up there. You demo weird tech. TCG Player demoed their in-store kiosk one time at Gamma. Sure, why the fuck not? Why wouldn't eBay show up?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last bullet point we have, this is the fun one. It's not even a question. It's just a statement.
Yeah.
eBay not only has, but is a tournament organizer now.
Yeah.
Twice over.
It's great.
Because that infrastructure was there at TCG Player before. We talked about this, about the Open
Yep.
Series way back in the day.
I think this is very interesting because, like you said, a shit ton more people go to eBay.com than went to TCG Player and Channel Fireball combined. And for them to now have a way to organize large events very realistically means they can influence the success of some card games.
I mentioned eBay showing up at Gamma. I mentioned eBay rolling into Gen Con.
Yeah. Insane, right? Like eBay just has a booth.
Oh,
They buy the 24
exactly.
Like this is something that, obviously this is probably magical Christmas land realistically, but this is the thing I'm most excited for about this. This is my kid in a candy store moment is, holy shit, eBay has a tournament organization. This is great.
How could they not fuck it up?
Yeah. Hey, it's got to be better than WotC, right?
Yeah.
Certainly better than Channel was at the end. Oh, wait, they got Channel. We'll see.
Yep. Yeah, because that's the one long line we traced was TCG Player made it very clear in the acquisition, and every bit of copy that was put out there about this acquisition, that they were going to maintain CFB events, that it was going to be a thing.
Yep.
And here we are with this merger. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, eBay now owns everything. So you can throw a little eBay stamp on your booth.
It's great.
I mean, it's cool. Maybe there's going to be a neat way to, like, pay a premium to get your shit at the eBay booth.
Yeah. Oh, delivered on site.
Yeah. Star City offers that. Like the whole one event a quarter. That's a lie. They got like one event a month coming up until the end of the year. They definitely picked it up.
Yeah, they did announce 2 more.
Yeah.
We've got Columbus, and then we've got Dallas in October, and SCG Con
we just had
Philly in November. Yeah.
So, no, that's an option. There's a lot of interesting stuff that goes on when you remember that eBay has TO, and eBay, that means that it opens up event roads and awkward partnerships for WotC for large events. Like, setting aside Magic 30, if you want to do like one giant Magic Fest or PT a year, like, fucking eBay's got pockets, man. Like,
yeah, boy, do they.
Yeah, what are the same logo colors as every other tech giant on this planet? Red, yellow, green, and blue. Yep. Called it. Yeah, easy game. That's going to be the exciting one at the end of it. Like, the merger and all that other stuff. Who stays, who goes, what does the tech stack look like, what is the products. If you can kind of predict that, and that's kind of boring. eBay is a TO, though. Woo, boy, buckle up.
It's going to be great. I can't wait.
Speaking of buckling up, you ready for picks?
Let's do it.
Okay. You go first since you came at me with 2.
All
you're talking about 1.
Yeah. So here's the story. I had a pick in mind for this episode, and then Damu spoilers started dropping. And there was one card in particular that dropped, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh, that's big. This is going to be weird because we're doing a 2-parter. Anyways, that's the one I went with instead of the one I was looking at before, and that pick is Whim of Volrath. Why is this random, uncommon, or rare from Tempest that is not reserve list worth $17? Well, if you take a look at the stocks graph, you can see that right around Kaldheim, this card went from a $1 low to a $17 low. Literally 10 times. It was 174 to 1795. So a 10x multiplier. Why, you ask? Well, because of a card from Kaldheim that you can take a look at on EDH Rec that actually shows it is the most used commander with Whim of Volrath. And it is the
Orvar,
the All-Form. There's a very important piece of text on here that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. Well, guess what Vesuvan Diplomacy says? Literally the same thing. well, not literally. It says artifact or creature,
Yep.
not any permanent.
Yep. It's an
But
enchantment out of Dominaria United for 3 and a blue. Whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except it's not legendary.
And the important thing here is Whim of Volrath is an instant. So we saw a 10x multiplier when Orvar came out. Obviously, I don't expect that here. That's not what's going to happen at all. But if you take a look at the stocks graph, you can see we've been on a steady decline since.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if people catch on and decide, all right, Whim of Volrath this is where I want to go. In terms of quantity, I'll be honest. As much as I think this card is going to go up, I don't think there's a ton of room. And that's why I would not go super deep on this. I've ordered a playset myself. Also, because it's an EDH card, you really don't need that many. 4 to 6 is probably where you want to be. I went on the more conservative side because I bought in on what will be next episode's pick. I think it's solid. The one concern I have is actually reprint equity. Because we're going back to the Brothers' War, and guess who was very prominent in that storyline? Volrath. So I think we may get as like an homage maybe in one of the commander decks we'll see it, and the reason I think we'll see it in that instead of a base set, nobody cares about color types anymore. It doesn't matter. It's not a mechanic Wizards cares about. So I just don't see this happening outside of maybe a commander deck, but I would be somewhat cautious about that.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at liquidity on TCG Player, there's been some sold. There's like 4 or 5 a day. You can see on the 18th and 19th, there were a ton sold. Since the card got spoiled, we're selling about 3 or 4 a day. That means there is demand out there. There are people who want this card, and I think that it only takes one content creator saying, hey, here's Orvar and an enchantment Orvar, let's make an Orvar deck.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this card takes off. That said, this card is not good. It is only good with either Orvar or Vesuvan Diplomacy. So timeline, that one's a little bit different. I'd say realistically, if I were holding this and the price had not moved in 4-ish months, I would unload even at a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, this card is not going anywhere. This is, again, I'm sure it's going to go up. I just don't know by how much because it's not that good. I don't see us getting another 10x on it. I think maybe $30 on some content creator, sure.
Yep.
But if it hasn't happened in the next 4 months, it's not going to. And I think one of the most important things about specs is some cards do become longer-term investments. Some cards you just unload to start the churn, and this would be one of the cards I would say would be a churn option if we don't see movement in about 4 months.
There's a parallel here, and I didn't think about it until just now. Okay, so I just want to bring these up because these are numbers. Okay. So Orvar, the all form, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see about 5,000 decks on rec. Not the most played, and you can kind of figure out why. It's a little griefy. Not a lot of people like playing against it.
Yeah.
We have Whim of Volrath that combos in this deck, right? 1 mana instant with buyback 2. Now, we also have Elminster from Commander's Legends Baldur's Gate, and it was like I knew the starter, but I didn't know the finish on this one.
Yeah.
Elminster is an 1800 decks as the commander, where you pretty much need Elminster, like Orvar, to get the combo going. Elminster has a passive. Whenever you scry, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of cards looked at while scrying this way. Okay? Costs 3, a blue and a white. Costs 1 more. It's a planeswalker. A little harder to deal with. Now, there's a nice card called Mystic Speculation.
Love that card. God, I love that card.
Future Sight. It's a 1 mana sorcery with buyback 2. That makes it the same mana value as Whim of Volrath. But sorcery speed not instant, which is fine. Because you're looking to do this on your turn. And it's very simple. Scry 3.
That's it.
Yep, that's it. That's the combo. We did it. This general, much less popular than Orvar. This Mystic Speculation that we can see on stocks spikes for Elminster from about $1.50 to about $6 and begins holding at about $5.
Yep.
Whim of Volrath tanked a little too hard after the first Orvar push. So, with this next piece of the combo, with Vesuvian Diplomacy, I would expect to see Whim of Volrath move a little bit more like Mystic Speculation, where the multiplier is not... I don't expect the same multiplier because it's also ridiculous. It's almost 7x. You know, we don't see that. But what I expect to see is this smaller drop-off and hold. We go from like $7 at the absolute high, $6.50 at the absolute high, to $5.50. That's a dollar drop. That is what I expect. I don't expect like the literal bottom to fall out of this card and see it go from 40 to 20, 44 to 22, a 50%
Certainly
drop.
not, yeah.
So this is what I would expect for this card. I wanted to give people a little bit of a parallel on this because I think it's a good look. We have another opportunity to push this card, a Tempest card. And we don't see buyback that often. It took Future Sight to bring buyback back. I don't know if we really get it in Commander sets. I can't remember. There are weird ones like Whispers of the Knees, which is just like one draw card.
There's been some,
punch.
but it's not something that they bring back unless it makes sense in the deck.
Yeah. Reiterate the fork with buyback. Stuff like that kind of makes sense. But yeah, I agree. I think this is a good pick overall. I think the reprint equity is pretty low outside of Commander deck, and even then I think it might be lower because I don't think they will really want to touch buyback that much anymore. It just seems a little too tough for the player base to want to deal with. Like, some of them are fine. Reiterate Whispers of the Muse. I'm sure there's a green one that isn't.
Forbid is insane. Capsize is insane.
Yeah, and those are very difficult for people to play against. I was going to say there's a green... I'm sure there's a green one that isn't the Fog.
Yeah.
Whatever. Constant Mists. That's the one that nobody likes playing against. So you can bring back some of the goofy ones. Dance of... Corpse Dance? No, that's reserve list, isn't it?
No, Corpse Dance
is not. Perfect.
Yeah. Shattering Pulse. It's just worse Shattering Spree.
Yeah. Exactly. There's some of these you can bring back, but I don't
see a reason to bring this one back. It's just... Outside of this instance, I don't think it's good enough.
Yeah, have they changed spell type or color individually since like Crystal Spray and Invasion?
No. I mean, there's Painter Servant, and they may have reprinted some kind of Lace in one of the Commander's decks.
That's what I thought.
Or Lace Effect.
Yeah.
Which for those of you that might be a little bit younger, look up the card Pure Lace. That was a rare in Alpha. Imagine getting that instead of Black Lotus. Sick.
I forgot who or what group maintained that it wasn't the Power 9, it was the Power 14, and the additional 5 cards were the 5 laces.
Were the 5 laces, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right. So, we're going from Whim of Volrath straight over to Species Specialist. Straight out of Commander 2020, which it's a good card. It kind of fits with my Patriarch's Bidding pick a while back, pretty exclusively because it's another tribal card. So double black for 2/3 Human Warrior, which is kind of irrelevant. As Species Specialist, Species Specialist enters the battlefield. Choose a creature type. Whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, you draw a card. You may. It came in. We've been looking at the stocks draft for a while at $1.50. It's currently sitting at $3.22, and now's about the time we take a look at this. So, I've had this on my list for almost a year now. I put it on there late October of 2021 when CK was buying 136 at $2.05. They're now buying half that many, but at $2.50. So, good increase overall. TCG market, there were 91 copies at $4.14. There are now 109 at $3.60. So that's a little more interesting shift. And as far as Commander playability goes, this is exactly what you see. It's really on the nose. Tribal decks involving black, and it's a wider swath of tribal decks than you think.
Yeah.
So we'd say that up front, 99% of the usage of this card is within a tribal themed deck. but that other 1% is pure spite for the tribal player at the table, as the trigger to draw does not require that you be the owner or controller of the creature. So,
Pretty great.
Yep, they could just be the little spite move. And looking at what players have been doing, it appears that most people just took the Ikoria Precon Ruthless Regiment, where this came from, and riffed on that. So they're basically, the top decks are basically human-based. The top commanders are for a species specialist, outside of the one cat nightmare thing.
Yeah.
For you. You see, there's Janira Kudro. That was one of the generals on it, and then we see, General Kudro, some human cleric stuff, a little bit of rat, some goblin, a little squirrel action, zombies. But the majority of these cards are just riffs on that deck. But again, that's just a surface level view. There are a large number of tribes that can or do involve black and should invest in this. The most interesting one here, and I think the one that really perpetuates that idea the best, or the two, and they're next to each other on the list, are Wart Bogart Ante, which is the Goblin General, and Chatterfang, which is the Squirrel General. Both of these decks can and should play Species Specialists because they can be base black decks. Also, Sethron Hurling General is in here, and you see these cards, and it should just kind of be that light, oh yeah, anything, just has to involve black.
Yeah.
There should be a quote-unquote tribal starter pack, and this card goes alongside things like Patriarch's Bidding, Vanquisher's Banner, and Door of Destinies, and that's why it's difficult to really talk about this card too much, because you say the same things. It's just foundational to tribal decks.
Yeah.
You got to keep it in mind. As far as a timeline is concerned, after release in the Ikoria Precon, this card plateaus for over a year. It's just a rope. And I think the interesting part to this, and the contributor, is that this is the cycle that has Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting SWAT, and the other three. The white one gives your creatures a creature, or your creature's indestructible, which is found in this deck, but the other three are just so far overshadowed by Fierce Guardianship and Deflecting SWAT that I think just people let this deck rot. They just didn't care about what was in this deck. They wanted access to Calamax, and they wanted access to Fierce Guardianship, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's why it's just a rope. Now, with the release of AFR and the Glut of Humans we saw there, players moved in hard, and you can see that on the stocks graph again. But the price held fairly well, which is cool. Coming out of Neo, we start to see a downturn in price, and that lasted about 6 months, and we're just seeing a market correction, and it's now growing at a sustainable rate. Why we saw that downturn coming out of Neo, I don't really know. There was nothing that really replaced this card. There was no reprint. There was not really a re-release of this product. So taking that downturn is just kind of weird, especially when we see the numbers we talked about earlier, which is just kind of hovering around the same number of listings. We are about up 10% on TCG Player in terms of population. This seems a little odd. But the interesting part here is that this card sells about 400 Nearman and LP copies a month, and that's been going on since May. So we're looking to get in well ahead of the drain on the market, which looks to be coming up within the next month or so. And from there, it shouldn't be too much longer, maybe yet another month or two before we can get out into the open market for profit, and then another few to buy list. So that's about a 3-month churn to open market and 6 to buy list, based on current sales velo. As far as reprint equity is concerned, this was a brand new card in the Ikoria Commander deck, meaning it was a fresh print for that. It had never been made before, and I wouldn't expect to see this again in the immediate future in supplemental sets. It's a very powerful effect, but I don't believe WotC agrees that the impact on the game is as powerful, or they do, and overvalue the combo potential. It's a mono black human that plays into the creature type within the IKO deck, and so we'll need to go back to a plane or see a deck where humans are the Mardu creature, are the Mardu creature type again, and not knights like we often see. And so what I mean by all that is that we won't see this in a goblin heavy set where there are also black goblins and black humans, because WotC overvalues the combo potential in that standard set. But if we go back to another plane, or we see another commander deck where we get the entire swath of Mardu humans, which seems to be the color identity that WotC is crafting for them, that is the possibility where this arises. Now, the issue is that, and this is the last sentence in here, it's got to be humans as the Mardu creature type, not knights, not core, nothing. Humans has to be the primary creature here. And I don't see that coming too soon. And I would expect it in a commander set before a standard set or some other random supplemental, like a master set or a draft set. Thus, overall, probably pretty low. If this was a zombie, I'd say we'd probably see it somewhere in the next year. I mean, hell, maybe even one of the Dominaria sets. But it's not. It's a human, which makes it a little odd.
Yeah.
As far as buy quantity goes, this thing's like $3-4. What is it? 3? I'd be happy to cap out at about a dozen of these. As my initial out would be in trade to locals and buy a list in time. What I have now is in my sealed product because I am a homer for the yearly releases and I buy sealed cases. So that's however many. I maybe a couple more after that, but I know I don't have the dozen I would like to have.
Yeah.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah, I think one of the most fascinating things about this card is when you think tribal and stuff like this, you usually go with, the big 5, right? You've got goblins, elves, zombies, clerics, wizards, right?
Yep.
That's where you expect to find this kind of thing. But the fact that this happened in a lower tier tribe, to me is actually interesting because it gives it a little bit more utility. Because additionally, like you said, it doesn't have to be you that controls the creatures. So I don't, the upside on this card seems insane from a gameplay perspective. Because it's so agnostic.
Yeah.
It's literally, like you said, you could just be like, man, I got a bunch of people that play tribal at my store. I guess I'll take it.
1% spite. 1% spite. I love it. You can get hosed with your own Patriarch's bidding by the other tribal player at the table, but this is not the same. And it is also what I'm here for. You got that Slivers player. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, what else?
They're going to draw you a bunch of cards when you play a Wrath.
Yeah.
Cool. Or someone plays a Wrath.
Yeah, Pirates are a thing, and they're not that great. You just start picking them off and drawing cards. I'll show you to Admiral Beckett Brass me.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the interesting utility that, maybe you just got kind of overlooked by this, but I think a lot of people also fell into the trap of, like I said, just iterating on that Mardu deck, that Mardu Humans deck, and never really branched out, so we're not seeing any content creator videos, 300 of the anti-decks have this, which is, Wart, Bogart anti-decks have this.
Yeah.
300 of the Sethron decks, and those are not small, big percentages. They are very small percentages of those decks, and it's just another card people forgot about that I don't think they should have. So
I think it's solid. I definitely think it is a much more solid long-term spec than mine is too, because even if they reprint it will only get better with time because more and more people playing, more and more tribes. It's great.
Yeah, the starter pack for whatever you're doing. You have your artifact starter pack for Commander, your mono rocks that are in and out of color identity. Here's your talismans, here's your whatever, right? It's okay, I want to play creatures. Okay, what colors are you in? It's okay, I'm in this, and black. Okay, cool. Well, black also brings you Patriarch's Bidding and this thing, Species Specialist, and the Patriarch's Bidding from Call Time that has Foretell. And this is just stuff that needs to get re-upped again. I think this is the same kind of lesson from when I picked Patriarch's Bidding a while ago. If you go back and listen to that section, I believe I basically said the same thing, which is just Patriarch's Bidding was too expensive for too long, and it just kind of fell out. But as more people recognize how affordable it is and what it does, we're going to see a pickup. And over time, it just becomes that foundational piece that we want it to be. So,
I think it's great.
Thank you. And that is going to do it for this week, right? You got nothing else for me?
Yes, I got nothing else unless you do.
No, I'm ready to go to bed. Cool. So, For at MTG Cabalcast on Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, and YouTube. I am at Halt. I am Reptar. You are
At Thirsty Sizzler.
I'll see you next week.
Deuces.